Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is episode 16, and we're covering global headlines for Monday, October 6th, 2025.
Hello, everyone.
We know you're busy, maybe you're commuting, cooking, working out, whatever it is. We're here to give you that deep dive, that quick, insightful look into what's happening around the world.
Yeah, think of us as your guide through the key stories.
And if we're talking a bit too fast, remember you can always slow down the playback speed to maybe 0.75x. Find what works for you.
Definitely. So, what are we digging into today? Well, it feels like there's this theme, old structures getting pushed hard by new forces.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, first up, we've got Japan. Huge political shifts, shaking up the financial markets, sending them to extremes, record highs, actually.
Right.
And then we're jumping way back, like 3,000 years back, to Egypt. There's a fascinating discovery about how the ancient Egyptians literally engineered their spiritual world.
Wow, okay. From finance to ancient history. What else?
Then it's back to the future, sort of. AI, specifically OpenAI. Their latest move is causing a real stir in Hollywood, really messing with the whole idea of intellectual property, that whole move fast and break things vibe.
Ah, the tech world special. Always challenging the rules.
You got it. And we wrap up with two pretty wild stories. One involves the UFC, mixed martial arts,
Uh-huh.
at the White House, seriously.
At the White House. Okay,
Yeah.
that's unexpected.
Right. And then there's this new Netflix drama, House of Guinness. It's a huge hit, but oh boy, is it causing some arguments. Really divisive stuff.
Intriguing. Sounds like a packed agenda indeed. Where should we start?
Let's jump right into Asia. Japan. That's where the immediate shockwaves are coming from. Hashtag tag 2. International politics. Sanai Takaichi wins LDP leadership election amid crisis, becomes most likely candidate to be Japan's first female prime minister.
Okay, so Japan. The big political news is that the ruling party, the LDP, that's the Liberal Democratic Party, they elected a new leader, Sanai Takaichi.
That's right. And this is a really big deal. Why? Because winning the LDP leadership race effectively makes her the person
Yeah.
most likely to become Japan's first female prime minister.
That's monumental, obviously. History in the making. But you mentioned it's more than that. It signals a policy shift.
Absolutely. It's not just about the historical first. Her win is being read by, well, basically everyone in the financial world as a huge turn towards a very expansionary economic policy.
So expand on that. What makes her win signal that?
Well, Takaichi is known as a staunch conservative. And when we say staunch, we mean really loyal, really committed to her principles, unwavering, you could say.
Say staunch conservative.
And crucially, she's a very vocal supporter of Abenomics. That's the economic strategy started by the late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe.
Right. Abenomics. I remember the three arrows: structural reform, fiscal policy, and aggressive monetary easing, right?
Exactly, that's the framework. So her win suggests a doubling down on that approach. More government spending, keeping interest rates extremely low.
So is this just like continuing the same path, or does her victory mean something deeper? Maybe a stronger consensus within the LDP that the market is cheering for?
It's a bit of both, but I think the consensus part is key for the markets. Her winning over more moderate candidates shows that the dominant wing of the LDP, the one that likes government spending but wants the central bank to keep money cheap, is still firmly in charge.
Right. So that predictability is what they like.
Exactly. And she's expected to leverage that win, use her political momentum to its maximum advantage to push for massive increases in government spending pretty much immediately.
And what kind of spending are we talking about?
Well, what economists call fiscal stimulus, big projects, often public-private partnerships, think tech modernization, maybe defense spending too, things aimed at boosting growth.
Okay, so she's not just inheriting Abenomics, she's planning to turbocharge it. How does this expected policy push hit the Bank of Japan, the BOJ? They're the ones controlling the money supply, right?
Ah, the BOJ. Yeah, they're central to this whole story. For ages, everyone's been waiting for Japan to maybe finally raise interest rates, normalize things a bit, maybe deal with some rising inflation they've been seeing.
Right, the expectation was that a rate hike was coming eventually.
Exactly. But Takaichi's victory, it basically threw that timeline out the window. Suddenly, the market expectation for an early rate hike is, well, it's receding, it's diminishing, moving further away.
Okay, so the thinking is she'll pressure the BOJ to keep rates low.
That's the bet. Investors believe she'll use her influence to keep the BOJ's monetary policy highly accommodative. That's the term we use in economics for policies that aim to stimulate growth, usually through low rates and easy money. Expansive, facilitating growth.
So maintaining that accommodative stance for longer than previously thought.
For the foreseeable future, yeah. And that fundamental shift in expectation is precisely why the Japanese markets went wild on Monday morning.
Okay, let's focus on that grammar point for a second. Using modals of likelihood, like is most likely to. You used it earlier saying she's most likely to become PM. It expresses a strong probability based on what we know now, right? Stronger than just may or might.
Exactly. It's about looking at the current evidence, her election, her stated policies, and making a strong prediction about the future. So we can say, based on this, she is most likely to prioritize fiscal stimulus.
Or the Bank of Japan is most likely to keep its accommodative policy.
Precisely. It frames the high degree of certainty the market is operating under right now.
Got it. Okay, let's do a quick practical activity for our listeners. Try repeating this sentence, focusing on the structure and the roles. Takaichi, the newly elected staunch conservative leader, is expected to completely shift policy direction.
Good one. Notice the vocabulary: staunch, conservative leader, policy direction.
All right, so quick comprehension check before we move to the market reaction. First question, what major economic policy framework is Sanai Takaichi strongly associated with?
That would be Abenomics.
And second, what specific expectation about the Bank of Japan's interest rate policy changed right after her victory?
The expectation of an early interest rate hike started receding. People now expect rates to stay low for longer.
Perfect. So let's do a quick, slow recap of this section.
Okay. Japan's ruling LDP elected Sanai Takaichi, a staunch conservative, as its new leader.
This makes her the person most likely to become the country's first female prime minister.
She's a strong supporter of Abenomics, favoring government spending, fiscal stimulus, and an accommodative monetary policy from the Bank of Japan.
Her win means expectations of interest rate hikes are now receding, and she's expected to leverage her position to push her economic agenda.
And that shift in expectation, well, that takes us straight to the financial markets. Hashtag Tag 3. Finance and markets. Takaichi victory drives Japanese stock to record highs and weakens the yen amid bets on aggressive fiscal stimulus.
Right. So Takaichi wins over the weekend. Monday morning, the markets open, and boom.
Boom is right. It was like a shot of adrenaline straight into the exchanges. For investors, the message was clear. More stimulus, more growth, cheap money continues.
And the numbers reflect that.
Absolutely. Let's look at the Nikkei 225. That's the main Japanese stock index. On Monday, it jumped over 4.60%. That's a huge single-day move. It hit a record intraday high, meaning the highest point reached during the trading day, of 47,873.40.
Wow, intraday. So it might have closed slightly lower, but it hit that peak during trading.
Exactly. And it wasn't just the Nikkei. The broader 2px index also hit an all-time high. It tells you there's immense investor confidence, basically betting that huge government spending, that fiscal stimulus we talked about, is coming soon.
A 2,100-point jump.
I know.
Yeah, that's not just noise. That's investors actively shifting money, right?
Yeah.
Based on this political change. Which areas saw the biggest gains?
Well, the money flowed heavily into sectors that usually do well when the economy is expected to pick up and people might spend more. We call these cyclical stocks. Think companies in real estate, technology, and consumer goods that aren't essential, things people buy when they feel more confident.
So like cars or electronics, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. For instance, Yaskawa Electric, a big name in robotics and industrial automation, its stock jumped over 20%. 20%. That shows investors are really betting on increased manufacturing, infrastructure projects, the kind of stuff fiscal stimulus often targets.
Okay, so stocks surged on stimulus hopes. But there's always another side to the coin in finance, isn't there? The currency market.
Oh, yes. And the reaction there was just as dramatic, but in the opposite direction. The Japanese yen weakened a lot.
So how much are we talking?
It dropped over 1.81% against the US dollar, and importantly, it crossed a key psychological barrier, 150 yen to the dollar.
150. Why is that level significant, and why did the yen weaken?
It weakened because of that expectation we discussed that Japanese interest rates will stay super low, while rates in other places, like the US, might be higher. Money tends to flow towards where it can earn higher interest, so demand for the yen drops. The 150 level is significant, partly because it's a big round number, but also because it starts raising alarm bells about potential government action.
Right. Let's bring in our grammar point here. Type 1 conditional sentences. These talk about real possibilities in the future, like if the yen weakens further, the government will likely face pressure. Can we apply that here?
Definitely. A weak yen isn't all good news for Japan. If the yen keeps falling, it will cause problems domestically.
What kind of problems? I know a weak yen helps exporters sell more abroad, boosting those cyclical stocks.
True, but it hurts ordinary people. Think about it. If the yen is weak, imports become more expensive. Food, energy, everything costs more. Plus, it can fuel things like tourism. Japan becomes super cheap for foreign tourists, potentially overwhelming popular spots, and it can inflate property prices, making housing less affordable.
Ouch. So it's a double-edged sword. And you mentioned government action, the Ministry of Finance stepping in. That's called intervention, right?
Exactly. Intervention is when a government or central bank takes direct action to influence its currency's exchange rate, usually by buying or selling large amounts of its own currency on the open market.
And there's a history here.
Yes, the market remembers. The Ministry of Finance conducted currency intervention back in October 2022 when the yen weakened past 151. So now that we're past 150 again, everyone's watching very closely.
So another conditional sentence. If the yen continues to slide sharply past this level, the government will likely intervene again.
That's the strong expectation, yes. They face a tricky balancing act. Takaichi probably wants a somewhat weaker yen to help with her growth plans, but if it falls too fast and causes too much pain at home, they will have to step in to stabilize it, regardless of the political desire for stimulus.
Okay, practical activity time. For our listeners, try to paraphrase the connection between Takaichi's victory and the weakening yen. Use your own words. Maybe try to include some of the new vocabulary like fiscal stimulus, cyclical stocks, or intervention. Take a moment to think about it.
Yeah, how does the political change link to the currency move?
All right, comprehension check first. Which index hit a record intraday high on Monday, and roughly how much did it jump?
That was the Nikkei 225, and it jumped over 4.60%.
And second, what are some of those negative domestic issues linked to a weak yen?
Rising import costs, potential over-tourism, and soaring property prices are key concerns.
Great, let's do that slow recap for finance.
Okay. Takaichi's election win sparked bets on aggressive fiscal stimulus and continued low interest rates.
This caused Japanese stock markets, like the Nikkei 225 and Toppi Essex, to hit record intraday highs, led by gains in cyclical stocks.
At the same time, the Japanese yen weakened significantly, falling past the 150 level against the dollar.
This sharp drop raises concerns about domestic issues, like import costs, and increases the likelihood of government intervention to stabilize the currency.
It's a real snapshot of how political shifts instantly ripple through global finance. #TaxCV mid-episode review.
All right, we're about halfway through our deep dive today. Let's quickly pause and review the vocabulary and grammar we've covered so far. It's a good moment to check your understanding.
Good idea. We had quite a few useful terms already. From the politics section, we had staunch, meaning very loyal or committed.
Like a staunch conservative.
Yeah.
Then accommodative, often used for monetary policy that aims to boost the economy, typically with low interest rates.
Right. Then leverage, meaning to use something to maximum advantage. And receding, which means moving back or diminishing, like the receding expectation of rate hikes.
And from the finance section, we just covered intraday, meaning within a single trading day.
Fiscal stimulus, government actions like spending or tax cuts to boost the economy.
Cyclical stocks, those company shares that tend to follow the ups and downs of the broader economy.
And finally, intervention, specifically government action to influence currency rates. So that's 8 words so far.
And grammar-wise, we looked at modals of likelihood, specifically using most likely to express strong probability about the future based on current evidence.
And we also touched on type 1 conditional sentences, the if present simple, then future simple modal structure for talking about real possibilities and their likely consequences, especially with those economic predictions.
Perfect. We could take a quick pause here if you need to review those concepts. We've linked political change to market reactions.
Yeah.
Where are we headed next?
We're going to pivot quite dramatically. From the fast-paced world of finance and politics to the very, very slow unfolding of history, we're heading to ancient Egypt. #V Science Archaeology Geoarchaeological Study solves 3,000-year-old mystery of Karnak Temple, linking its origins to ancient Egyptian creation myth.
Ancient Egypt. Okay, specifically Karnak Temple in Luxor. Huge famous site. What's the new discovery?
It's really quite profound. Karnak was the main religious hub for the god Amun-Ra during the New Kingdom, around 1550 to 1070 BCE. The big question has always been, why build this absolutely massive central temple complex right there?
There must have been a reason beyond just available land, I guess.
Exactly. And a new study using geoarchaeological methods seems to have cracked it. It was published in the journal Antiquity.
Okay, geoarchaeological. That sounds like combining geology, earth science with archaeology.
Precisely. Applying earth science techniques to archaeological questions. In this case, they used it to reconstruct the ancient landscape around Karnak.
How do they do that?
They collected 61 sediment cores. Think of them like long, thin tubes of soil drilled deep out of the ground. These cores show layers built up over thousands of years. They also analyzed thousands of ceramic fragments found in those layers.
And this gave them a picture of what the land looked like 3,000, 4,000 years ago.
An unprecedentedly detailed picture, yes. And the core finding is fascinating. The location wasn't just convenient, it was deliberately chosen and even modified for deep religious symbolism. It connects directly to the ancient Egyptian creation myth.
The creation myth. The one about the land rising from the waters.
That's the one. The myth of the primeval mound, the first bit of land, emerging from the chaotic waters of Nun at the beginning of time. The study shows Karnak was originally built on what was essentially a high island, slightly elevated land formed by the shifting channels of the ancient Nile.
An island rising from the water.
Okay.
I see the connection.
But here's the really cool part. The area wasn't actually suitable for permanent building initially. It flooded constantly. It only became stable enough for people to live there around 2520 BCE.
So they waited until it was naturally stable.
They started worship there shortly after it stabilized. Yes, around the Old Kingdom period, maybe 2300, 2000 BCE, based on the pottery evidence. But the researchers believe the builders went further. They think they actually altered the landscape to accentuate the symbolism.
Accentuate. Like to emphasize or make it more noticeable.
Exactly. To heighten the effect. The evidence suggests they engineered the surrounding land, maybe building dikes or channels, so that when the annual Nile floodwaters receded, moved back, the temple complex would literally appear to rise up out of the water.
Wow. So they were recreating the moment of creation every year when the floodwaters receded.
That seems to be the interpretation, yes. A physical manifestation of their core beliefs engineered into the landscape itself. The geoarchaeological evidence helps corroborate this theory.
Corroborate meaning to confirm or support a theory or finding?
Yes, to validate or substantiate it. The sediment cores show the changing river dynamics, and the placement of structures seems designed to work with the receding water.
That's incredible. And the pottery shards help date this. They corroborate the timeline.
They do. Finding Old Kingdom pottery confirms worship started very early, right when the site became usable, linking the temple's origins directly to that period of dynamic river activity and island formation.
So just to check comprehension again. Before about 2520 BCE, why was the Karnak site basically unusable for permanent settlement?
Because of recurrent severe flooding from the Nile.
And what surprising thing did they find about the ancient Nile channels near the site? Something about the Eastern Channel.
Yeah, the study suggests the Eastern Channel might have been larger or more significant than previously thought. Archaeologists had often focused more on the Western Channel. It shows how complex the river system was and what the builders had to contend with.
Fascinating. Okay, let's look at grammar for this section. Phrasal verbs. Specifically, the difference between just to link and phrasal verbs like to link up.
Right. To link usually connects a subject to information or a concept, like the research links the temple's origin to mythology. It's often conceptual.
Whereas to link up often means physically connecting or collaborating with someone, like the researchers linked up with a team from Southampton University to analyze the cores.
Exactly. Or you might say they need to link up the new excavation site to the main road. It implies a more physical or network connection.
Let's try a mini exercise. How would you use link or link up in these sentences? First, the study aims to climate change to ancient settlement patterns.
That would be linking concept.
Second, we need to, with the logistics team, to coordinate the equipment.
That sounds like link up, coordinating between teams.
Got it. Now, for pronunciation practice, these terms can be a bit tricky. Let's try repeating them. Geoarchaeological study.
Geoarchaeological study.
Sediment cores.
Sediment cores.
Ancient Egyptian creation myth.
Ancient Egyptian creation myth. Good practice.
Okay, slow recap for Karnak.
A major geoarchaeological study used sediment cores and pottery to investigate Karnak temple's origins.
It found the site was likely chosen because it was a natural high island, linking it to the Egyptian creation myth.
Evidence suggests builders even modified the landscape to accentuate this symbolism. making the temple appear to rise as floodwaters receded.
The findings corroborate early worship starting soon after the site stabilized around 2300–2000 BCE, linking the temple's foundation directly to the mythology.
It shows an amazing blend of engineering and spiritual expression. Hashtag tag I say. Technology and intellectual property OpenAI launches Sora 2 and responds to Hollywood backlash with more granular IP control and revenue sharing model.
From engineering the sacred in ancient Egypt
Yeah.
to engineering digital content that's causing some very modern problems, OpenAI and Sora 2.
Yeah, quite the jump. So OpenAI launched Sora 2 not just as a feature, but as a standalone app, initially in the US and Canada. It lets users create short AI videos up to 10 seconds, high def, with synced audio. Pretty powerful tech.
But the launch immediately hit turbulence, right, over copyright issues.
Big time. Almost instantly, users started generating videos featuring really well-known, heavily protected characters. Think Mario, Pikachu, Ronald McDonald, even Lara Croft.
Oh, wow. So they were stress testing the intellectual property boundaries right away.
Exactly. And this set off alarm bells everywhere, especially in Hollywood and the legal world. The app immediately came under intense scrutiny.
Scrutiny, meaning close, critical examination or observation. Makes sense, especially after other AI companies have faced lawsuits, like that Anthropic settlement you mentioned earlier.
Right. So OpenAI CEO Sam Altman came out fairly quickly with a response, promising two main things to try and calm the waters. First, more granular control for copyright owners.
Granular, that word suggests fine detail, right?
Huh.
Specific. So what does granular control mean here?
It means they're planning to allow copyright holders to get very specific in blocking the use of their characters. The idea is that a studio, say Nintendo, could provide examples of Mario, and OpenAI would train its AI not to generate videos featuring him based on that input. Fine-grained control.
Okay, the sort of technological block list. What was the second part of their response? Something about money.
Yes, a revenue sharing model. This is the more, let's say, commercially focused part. They're proposing to share revenue with owners who allow their characters or IP to be used by Sora users.
So turning copyrighted characters into licensable assets within the app.
Essentially, yes. Though Altman admitted they still need to figure out exactly how that framework would work. Lots of trial and error, he said. It's about finding a way to monetize this capability while trying to appease the rights holders.
But legal experts aren't buying it, are they? This whole approach seems problematic from a copyright law perspective. The idea that the rights holder has to tell OpenAI not to use their stuff, that sounds like an opt-out system.
That's precisely the core criticism. Legal scholars are pointing out that copyright generally requires permission before you use something and opt-in. This OpenAI plan sounds like an opt-out. We'll use it unless you specifically tell us not to and provide the data to help us block it.
Which puts the burden entirely on the copyright owner.
Exactly. Critics are calling it the classic Silicon Valley move fast and break things strategy applied to copyright law. They argue it's fundamentally inconsistent with how copyright is supposed to work. It challenges the whole legal edifice.
Edifice, that's a good word here, like a complex structure or system of beliefs. So the legal edifice of copyright law is being challenged.
Definitely. OpenAI is basically betting that it's cheaper to deal with potential lawsuits later than to get permission for everything up front or build a perfect blocking system. It's a high-risk strategy. One big lawsuit from a major studio that refuses to play ball could potentially bring down this whole approach.
And what about proving where the content came from? The provenance.
That's another huge issue. Provenance refers to the origin or history of something, like art, or in this case, digital content. OpenAI says they're working on better metadata to track the provenance of AI-generated videos, but metadata can often be removed easily, so proving infringement and tracking usage remains really difficult.
So the tech allows for easy generating of potentially infringing content, putting it under intense scrutiny, and OpenAI's solution offers granular controls, but relies on an opt-out system that challenges the legal edifice and doesn't fully solve the provenance problem.
Wow, it's a legal minefield.
Hmm.
Okay, let's hit our grammar point. Gerunds as nouns. The ing form of a verb acting like a noun. We see this a lot in these complex legal or technical discussions.
Right, like in your sentence, generating copyrighted content poses risks. Here, generating is the subject of the sentence, acting like a noun.
Exactly. Or think about OpenAI's plan. The company is testing sharing revenue. Sharing is the object of the verb testing, or Hollywood's concern. Hollywood is concerned about generating unlicensed characters. Generating is the object of the preposition about.
So the ing form isn't always a verb indicating action in progress. It can be the name of the action itself.
Precisely. It's super common when talking about activities or processes as concepts. Let's try a quick exercise. Use a gerund in these sentences based on the topic. First, AI models requires massive amounts of data.
Okay, training AI models requires massive amounts of data.
Perfect. Second, rights holders are worried about the unauthorized generating or just unauthorized generating.
Unauthorized generating works well, or even just generating their IP without permission. The gerund phrase acts as the noun. Good. Okay, comprehension check. First, what's the maximum length of video users can create on the Sora 2 app?
Up to 10 seconds.
And second, how do legal experts describe OpenAI's opt-out policy, and why do they say it's inconsistent with copyright law?
They describe it as inconsistent because copyright typically requires permission before use, opt-in, whereas OpenAI's model seems to place the burden on rights holders to stop use after the fact, opt-out.
Right. Okay, practical activity. Can you, the listener, try to summarize the risk OpenAI is taking in maybe one or two sentences? Try using the words scrutiny and granular.
Yeah, what's the gamble they're making?
All right, slow recap for AI and IP.
OpenAI launched Sora 2, an AI video app, sparking immediate scrutiny over copyright issues as users generated protected characters.
In response, OpenAI proposed more granular detailed controls for IP owners to block character use and a potential revenue-sharing model for permitted use.
However, legal experts criticize this as an opt-out system inconsistent with copyright law, challenging the legal edifice and raising issues of provenance.
The strategy is seen as high risk, potentially leading to major legal battles despite the technological advancement in generating content.
It really highlights the clash between rapid tech innovation and established legal frameworks. #7. Sports and Entertainment UFC confirms historic event at the White House in 2026 with intense cast intrigue and controversy over Netflix hit drama series.
Okay, speaking of challenging norms and established places, let's move to our final segment, sports and entertainment. And the first story is, well, it's definitely challenging norms. The UFC at the White House.
Yes, you heard that right. Discussions are apparently finalized. The UFC, the mixed martial arts organization, is planning to hold an event on the South Lawn of the White House in 2026.
The South Lawn. Seriously, that's unexpected. What's the occasion?
It's timed very specifically, June 14th, 2026. That date marks two things: President Trump's 80th birthday, and it's also part of the wider celebrations for the 250th anniversary of American independence.
Wow. Okay, that's loaded with symbolism. What else do we know? UFC CEO Dana White called it epic, I bet.
He did indeed. Many details, like who's actually fighting or how many people can attend, are still up in the air. But one detail that is confirmed is pretty striking. The pre-fight weigh-ins are planned to happen at the Lincoln Memorial.
Weigh-ins at the Lincoln Memorial. Okay, the visuals for this whole event are going to be something else. What about the practicalities? Fighting on the South Lawn must do some damage.
It definitely will, and they know it. The UFC is reportedly budgeting around $700,000 just to replace the grass on the South Lawn after the event.
$700,000.
Yeah.
Just for the grass. That really underscores the scale and, frankly, the expense and commitment involved here.
Yeah.
Any big names potentially fighting?
Well, the rumor mill is already churning. Former champion Conor McGregor has apparently expressed strong interest in being on the card. But actual fight negotiations probably won't even start until early 2026. So lots of intrigue there.
Intrigue. That word fits perfectly. Secret plotting, maybe, but also just a captivating quality that draws interest. There's definitely intrigue around who will fight.
Exactly. It's this massive mix of sport, spectacle, politics, and money. Now, speaking of intrigue and controversy, let's switch to our second story. A new Netflix drama.
Ah, yes, House of Guinness. From Stephen Knight, the creator of Peaky Blinders, right? I heard it shot up the charts quickly.
It did. Premiered late September, quickly became like the third most watched show globally on Netflix. It follows the Guinness family, specifically the 4 adult children of Benjamin Guinness after his death. Lots of family drama, business struggles, historical backdrop. Classic Stephen Knight stuff, really.
The Peaky Blinders style, kind of gritty, fast-paced.
Yeah, what you might call rough-hewn, a bit crude or unpolished, but with a certain energy. The show mixes real historical figures and events. Benjamin Guinness's struggles, his daughter Anne's philanthropy, conflicts with Irish revolutionaries like the Fenians with fictional elements.
Including a major fictional character, right?
Yes, Sean Rafferty. He's portrayed as this brewery foreman and family fixer, deeply involved with the Guinness siblings, but he's completely made up. And it's this blend of fact and fiction and the portrayal of history that's causing problems. The reception has been incredibly divisive.
Divisive, meaning tending to cause disagreement or hostility. Polarizing. How so?
It's split largely along geographical lines, it seems. International critics and presumably the global audience seem to be enjoying the dynastic intrigue, the power struggles, the rough-hewn style. They see it as compelling drama.
But
But critics in Ireland have been scathing, absolutely brutal. They argue the show mangled history, that it shows only a rudimentary understanding of Ireland's complex colonial past and the revolutionary movements.
rudimentary, like basic, undeveloped, maybe even primitive.
Exactly. They felt the portrayal of Irish revolutionaries was cliche, almost like caricatures. One critic even used the phrase feral leprechauns, which is pretty harsh. They argue the show frittered away its potential for genuine historical insight.
Frittered away,
Yeah.
like squandered or wasted time and energy on trivial things.
Yeah, wasted its opportunity on cheap drama and historical inaccuracies, according to these critics. They feel the authenticity was sacrificed for the sake of that rough-hewn, fast-paced style, and that it presented a very superficial, rudimentary view of a painful history.
So it's a fascinating split. Global hit, fueled by intrigue, but facing intense local criticism for being historically rudimentary and divisive.
It really highlights how historical fiction can land very differently depending on the audience's connection to the history being portrayed.
Let's touch on grammar quickly. Compound adjectives. Those adjectives formed by combining two or more words, often with a hyphen, to modify a noun. Like you said, rough-hewn grit. Or we could talk about a high-stakes UFC fight, or OpenAI's revenue-sharing model.
Or even describing the show itself may be well-produced but historically flawed. The hyphen connects the words to show they function as a single descriptive unit before the noun.
Let's try making a couple. How would you describe the UFC event using a compound adjective, maybe focusing on its location?
A White House-based event? Or maybe high profile?
High profile works well. What about the critical reaction to House of Guinness?
Definitely passionately debated. Or sharply divided.
Good ones.
Yeah.
Okay, comprehension check for this section. First, why is the date June 14th, 2026 significant for that planned White House UFC event?
It marks both President Trump's 80th birthday and falls during the 250th anniversary celebrations of U.S. independence.
And second, in House of Guinness, who is the central character that is entirely fictional, and what's his role?
That's Sean Rafferty, the brewery foreman and family fixer who gets entangled with the Guinness children.
Got it. Last practical activity. Try to describe the critical reception to House of Guinness in one complex sentence. Make sure you use both divisive and rudimentary.
Give it a shot. How did the critics react using those words?
Okay, let's do our final slow recap for sports and entertainment.
The UFC confirmed plans for a historic, likely controversial event on the White House South Lawn set for June 14, 2026, coinciding with President Trump's 80th birthday and the U.S. 250th anniversary.
Details like the fight card are pending, but the weigh-ins are planned for the Lincoln Memorial, and the UFC will spend heavily, around $700, just to replace the lawn afterward, adding to the intrigue.
Meanwhile, the Netflix drama House of Guinness, created by Stephen Knight, became a global hit, but faced highly divisive reactions.
While international audiences embraced its rough-hewn style and dynastic intrigue, Irish critics condemned it for shittering away authenticity, presenting a rudimentary view of history, and mangling the portrayal of Irish experiences.
Two very different entertainment stories, both generating a lot of buzz and debate. #tag8. Outro.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, looking back across these stories, that theme you mentioned at the start really holds up. Old structures, established norms being challenged everywhere.
It really does. You see it in Japan, where Takaichi's win is shaking up long-held economic expectations. You see it with OpenAI, where the technology is just running roughshod over the existing legal edifice of copyright. It's almost like the new is actively trying to dismantle the old.
And even the Karnak story, in a way. It shows how even ancient, seemingly permanent structures were themselves the result of active engineering, shaping a narrative, accentuating a belief system using the natural world.
Right. And now we see modern forces doing the same, but at hyperspeed. Like the UFC literally reshaping the White House lawn for a modern spectacle, even if they pay a hefty price, that $700,000 to restore it afterwards. It's the cost of imposing the new onto the traditional.
It underlines the sheer force and sometimes the cost of these shifts. We're constantly redefining boundaries, aren't we? Whether they're political, legal, technological, or even physical.
A constant state of redefinition. That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so that leads us to our final provocative thought for you, our listeners, to maybe mull over. We talked about the huge investment the UFC is making just to restore the White House lawn after their event. It makes you wonder, What other historical places around the globe, maybe ancient sites like Karnak, sacred spaces, or other politically symbolic locations, what places should be considered completely off limits for modern sports or mass entertainment, no matter how much money someone offers to put things back the way they were? Are there places that just shouldn't be touched?
Hmm, that's a tough one. Where do you draw the line between using history and potentially exploiting it? Something to think about.
Definitely something to ponder. Thank you so much for joining us today for this deep dive. We covered a lot of ground, from Japanese politics to Egyptian archaeology, AI law, and some pretty unique entertainment news.
We hope it was useful and maybe gave you some new vocabulary and grammar points to work with, too.
We really appreciate you choosing us to help you navigate the world's happenings. We'll be back tomorrow, as always, with another look at the essential stories.
Until then, take care.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. See you tomorrow.